What is up, and welcome to the 22 Booker podcast, brought to you by 22 Booker Entertainment and the team, the film Morning. I'm your host, Corlandos Scott, and I'm joined by my co-host, writer, director of the film Morning, Ryan Lipscomb. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited because our guest today is a super talented cinematographer, Ruben Contreras. Ruben, how you
I'm
doing?
doing great. Thank you so much for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
Yo,
man,
we're glad to
we're
have
glad
you.
to have you.
For people who don't know, Ruben and I go way back, uh, back to our days at USC, the film program at USC, and he worked in camera department on my film Bruise, and he's going to be the cinematographer on Morning. So really excited to talk to him today. Uh, Ruben, man, just what's how's life? How's everything going?
Man, you're talking about like USC days, man. I felt like I was a kid back then, man.
Yes,
That was so long ago, man.
so
I
long
got
ago.
like gray in my beard. Now I'm all like, man, that was like,
Now you
Yo, I
look.
got a little bit happening too, man. Yo, we
It happens. It happens. Now you're
it
looking at the
happens,
other ones coming out of USC, and you're like, look at these kids, all bright eyed, bushy tail, excited
baby.
about the industry,
Yeah.
loving Hollywood.
Hmm. Yeah. So, Ruben, I guess we'll just start like just why don't you start talking about like you know your background and like how you got into film and ultimately ended up at USC.
Can I add something, Ryan? I mean, if it's okay,
Yeah,
Ruben, and you
sure.
may already this might be part of the answer to the question Ryan asked you, but I'm curious if in this answer to Ryan's question, you could throw in there what film, if there was one that you saw that clicked, that was part of the moment that clicked for you that this is what you wanted to do.
damn, yeah, um, yeah. Um, I started doing like photography. My dad showed me how to like take like still photos when I was like maybe like in middle school. Doing like film, and he showed me how to use a camera, and I got hooked instantly. I was like, oh, this is such a cool, felt like some like magical thing that like I didn't quite understand like how it worked out. Take photos, and that's back in like 1 hour photo days, and you like send it in, and you get it back a few days, or like an hour later, and you get all this stuff back, and I was like, oh, this is like magic. And then my cause then like I had a connection. My dad learned from his father, and then so it's like three generations of like pretty much like image makers. And I was able to talk to my dad about it. I was able to talk to my grandfather about it. My grandfather was like my first like my first like I got my first critique from my grandfather. Like I would take a roll from like every time I'd shoot a roll, I take it to my grandfather. He'd like teach me about rule of thirds. Teach me about leading lines. All that stuff is like a middle schooler, like going into high school. It was dope. Take him a roll and you take go photo by photo, critiquing all my photos. Not that I was like, oh, that was invaluable. That shit was dope.
Jeez.
Um, and so it's like all of the things, all of like these rules and these things, like old school rules, I learned from my grandfather, and because he was like taking photos of his family, of like my father and my uncles, my grandmother. Um, so he knew like about exposure. He knew about like a little bit of like color theory, just the stuff that he's done on his own. So I was like shooting photos, shooting stills through high school, and then my uncle, he worked for like a news affiliate, like as a cameraman, um, out of Fresno.
Oh,
And so, and I was like, oh, this is like there's like a video aspect to it, and it's like and he also like started editing. And so what he did is he took old family like 8 millimeter film and then some like video that he shot and started editing these like pieces together and put it to music. And for me, whenever I see things like edited and put to music on TV, that's like not of my world, right? That's like Hollywood. That's like there's that's like a professional thing. So whenever I saw images of my family edited together to music, I was like, oh, like that gap shrunk. I was like, oh, there's something
mhm.
there's like I can like I can do this. There's something that like that's obtainable, and then like I can also, but it wasn't like it didn't bring the magic down. It elevated. It's gonna. I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, but it elevated my family up, or elevated
Hmm.
that like what is possible, and like what folks can do, like what my family can do to. It's not a status thing, but it was like oh, like magic can live in the mundane, right? Like these birthday parties. Like there was one of like I think my first birthday party, and it's like edited to music, and I was like, oh, this is like there's like some magic that's in here, and it's this magic is obtainable. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was like, oh, this is cool. Then I started. Then my family got a little like high video camera, and then I forget which editing software it was. I started like editing like home videos on my own, and I got hooked, and I started putting
Mhm.
music to it, and I was like, ah, it's like you got bit by the bug, and I feel like everyone has like a similar story, right? And then
Yeah.
and I never turned back. I was like, oh, this is dope. Like the idea of music. My family's a huge musical family, so I was like, I'm heavily influenced by music and then images, so it's like pairing those together. It was it blew my mind. And to like answer your question, which is a bit kind of a departure, but like the Matrix. Like I'm of that age where I was like in middle school when the Matrix came out, and that shit blew my mind. And it was like the ideas of like what it can do, and like there was like that was like a big that was a huge like technical marvel at the time, right? So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what can you do, and like what does it mean to like slow it down but also speed it up, and all these things. It's just like
Mhm.
bending time that like it fascinated me. So then I was like in the lab, right? But I was like this little kid, and like just like how do I do this? How do I like use these like dissolve transitions to make it look like I'm like doing these things, and like just messing with it. Um, and I was like, oh, this is a trip. And so whenever it like came to like going to college, it's like how can I? My parents, I've been really fortunate. It's like my family has been like very supportive in like going into like a more of like an arts related career.
Hmm.
Um, so like I went to San Francisco State and messed around a little bit, like and then after that went to USC for the grad program. And like that's where like I think I took it like a little bit more seriously, where I was like, because I was just like in my 20s in or both, but I was like in my early 20s whenever I went to San Francisco State, and just like everyone's like dumb at that time. So I was like, and so whenever I went to like grad school, I was like buckled down and put in work, and trying to like really hone in what I was going after, and
You
did
you
that.
said you said a couple of things that are like very interesting there. Like, and I think a lot of us as like filmmakers kind of have that like same moment. I know, especially like amongst like our cohort, whatever, like filmmakers of color, especially, right, where there's a point in time when we were children, whatever, where I fell in love with this art form, and it on some level it felt like the moon. At least I know
Hmm.
it did, like for
Hmm.
me, right, where it was like I was sitting in Atlanta and like watching movies. And I had like a similar thing where around that time, like middle school and high school, where like really started to click, like where I was like, yo, we can like the things we can do with cinema manipulate. Like I saw Gladiator, I saw the Matrix, also, you know what I mean, like even going back a few years earlier, is like with Jurassic Park for me, where it's like the things we can do with cinema in camera, where we can just manipulate reality, you know what I mean, and create a world bigger than our own and stuff like that. Like that was so amazing. It was a thing that I loved about cinema, and it seems like you had a similar thing. And then just like the idea of just like to be able to like work in Hollywood, actually like do this on a larger scale, whatever, and make films ourselves, whatever. The idea that we could do that, you know what I mean? Like, there was no barrier to us doing that. We could will it to happen if we really like chased it, right? You know, but like, you know, even for me, like even just getting to USC myself, it felt like the moon. You know what I mean? You know, that's how it felt. Whatever. I know, like if you had like a similar reaction, like when you got to USC.
Yeah, I didn't real like I was waiting for them to like send me an email and saying that they messed up, like all the way up until like I got like I like moved down, I went to orientation, and then I didn't really start believing it until like I got my student ID. And then I feel like I was wondering at what point if they mess up, can they just like let me stay, right? So it's like I'm like waiting for like oh yeah, like we fucked up. It wasn't really supposed to be you. It was supposed to be
I
somebody
was like,
else. And I was like I was waiting
oh,
for it. Yeah,
you're Ruben Contreras. We meant
you're Ruben.
Ruben
Yeah, right.
Contreras.
Yeah.
Ah, my
And
bad.
so I was like, I'm just like waiting. I'm like trying not to make it like try not to draw attention to myself because then they'll
That's
realize that they fucked
hilarious,
up.
man.
And
No,
so it's
listen.
like I
Once you get the bill, it's safe to say you're good. You're good. When they take that money,
yeah, then
mm-mm,
yeah, 100%. So
got your
yeah, it was
money.
yeah, because like 100%, there's a lot of hype and a lot of notoriety about USC. So it's like, especially like coming from like this kid out of what I like Sacramento at the time. Like
Yeah,
it's going right now, but it's like Sacramento is didn't like for me. It feels like it has like a very small town vibe to it, um, and so it's like coming out to LA where these like there's like folks coming from all over the world coming to USC, and so it's like 100% imposter syndrome, 100%. That's exactly,
Mhm.
and so I was like waiting for it to like it's like when is this bubble gonna pop, like
I
type of
don't know if
thing.
that ever ends though. Like, right? Does that ever end? I've even heard just like amazing filmmakers talk about, especially like the first day of development or the first day of pre-production or the first day of production, they still feel like imposters. Like, how am I going to do this? And then out comes Apocalypse Now, and you're like, oh, it's like, well, you figured it out, I guess. But I don't think that ever changes, man. And I don't know if I even ever told you this story, Ryan, but I'm so glad that I didn't have that same moment that you guys had because I may have never even pursued it. I was kind of like, I wouldn't say ushered or coddled, or I was just kind of like, I stumbled into all of it. Like the first time I ever grabbed a script was because I was in fifth grade and I got in trouble. I was that dude who was always clowning in class. So I got in trouble.
Yeah.
And the teacher told me you had two options. She was like, I will send you to the office, at which point they would call my parents, at which point game was over. Like it was gonna get bad. Or you can do the school play. I was like, sign me up for whatever that
Oh
is.
wow.
Like I'm doing the school play. I don't know what it is, but I'm doing it. And I ended up playing Santa Claus in fifth grade, and I'll never forget,
That's perfect casting.
bro. Right? Come on, man, come on. It was the North Pole goes rock and roll. So Santa had a makeover. It was, man. I wish I could find it, but I mean, like I'm
You
sure a
gotta
lot
find
of
those photos. You're gonna start popping those photos
bro.
into the
I
video.
got to.
I want to see that.
We got to edit that in somehow. I gotta hit my mom's up, see if she has some of that stuff. But I walked out on stage and like the first laugh, I was like, oh, this is. I did that. Like this is dope. Like I have to do that. I mean, whatever else I do, I want to do this. And then I was fortunate enough to get a professional theater gig as like a 10 or 11 year old, and that's when I realized I was like, oh, they will pay you to do this. I think I got like $100 for like summer stock theater or something like that. But it was like, I got $100 for showing up every weekend and just doing this thing. I was like, this is amazing. So it was like little by little, I started to see like there is a world out there that exists. And I'm originally from the South, so I couldn't have been further away, both geographically and just figuratively from Hollywood than where I grew up. I grew up in North Alabama. So it was like you, when I finally made the decision to make the jump, by that time I had started doing local stuff. I had an agent in Atlanta and in Nashville, and I had been doing some indie films and commercials regionally and stuff. But you show up here and it's like, oh, oh man, this is like the Olympics. Like everybody was doing that stuff in Sacramento and in Atlanta and Birmingham, Alabama, and wherever the case was. Um, but for whatever reason, like you just can't let it go. You can't
Mm.
not do it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a similar thing, just like Ruben, same as you. When like I got into USC, like I think at that point, I left a corporate job and I decided I moved back to Atlanta and I was like working on sets as location assistant and like I applied these film programs and I applied like the top 5 programs I could think of, and I was like, if it don't work out, I'll just go to like get my MBA or something like that. And so I remember I was on set and like came home and there was a letter. It was like a big envelope from USC, and I'm like, this is a bit thick to be a rejection letter. You know what I'm
they got a
saying?
whole lot to say just to say no.
You know, you know what I mean? When I got rejected from NYU, though, that they did have a whole lot to say. Like, you're one of the last people we brought in, we're gonna bring in before we write in the interviews. I was like, well, thank you. I didn't need to know that. You know what I mean? Um, but USC thing, they gave the big envelope, opened it up, and like I had to read it twice because I was like, wait a second. Like, cause I got waitlisted, but I was like, that waitlist mean I'm not in, or was like, no, you're not gonna start in the fall, you're gonna start in the winter, you're gonna start in January, and I was like, I think I got into USC, that's crazy, you know, and when I went to campus, stepped on campus, it felt so crazy to me the entire time I was there. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here, you know what I mean? It was so wild to me, but then like you get in, you kind of meet the kind of cohort of people coming in, everybody kind of is feeling the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did we get here? You know what I mean? Um, and so then like what is Ruben, like uh once you got to USC, right? Like what were the things that turned you on, whatever, like what was your experience just at, USC being in the film program, stuff like that? What was your experience there?
Yeah, it was a trip because it's sort of like it's that imposter syndrome is for real, and there's like this idea, like I'm trying to figure out like what, because it's like if I don't believe that I belong here, it's like cool, and there's like all these people from around the world and like doing like these like kind of like crazy stories and crazy experiences coming into this. It's like I'm just like
Mhm.
a dude out of Sacramento who like I feel like it's like, oh, I don't have the same like crazy experiences as these other folks. It's like, how do I then like unfortunately like what my approach was is like, cool, then how do I change who I am to be more interesting? How do I change myself to become hireable? Because there is still like there's like a huge competition aspect at USC. It's like how do
Yeah.
I change who I am to fit people's expectations or people that they want to work with, and like
Mm.
disregarding like the things that make me me and things
Mm,
that I find interesting, and um and shifting it to like what other people want, and
mm,
and especially being like a person of color, it's like there's different expectations, or there's different people look at you differently as a creator, just as a person in general, but then like also as like a creative, and like and in a white space it's like cool, maybe being like a Mexican American dude isn't like there's like expectations on myself, what other people think of me, and then like cool, then like how do I maybe skirt those expectations or play down what they think of me and then try to break through as like something else. Like I like just so that I can like maybe be hired or be brought on to different projects. And like that was like a struggle of fucking identity, man. Was like that was like that was through USC, and honestly like after USC, all the way up into like pandemic, which is like maybe like a decade later, trying to like
Can we stop and
figure out.
unpack that, man? Can we? Can
Yeah,
we?
100%. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't want to gloss over that. That is so real and tangible and palpable. I mean, clearly to me as a black man, I was, for better or for worse, one of the watchwords that I always heard my parents tell me growing up was live above the stereotype. And like they said it so much that like if I was going out, if we were if they knew me and my friends were about to hit the whatever, they're like, hey, live above the stereotype. And what they were saying was when you walk out of this house, there are some expectations that people are going to look at you and automatically place on you. Don't fit into that box. And they love me and I know what they were doing. They wanted the best for me. But as I got older, the thing that I realized, and because I carried it with me, and even to this day, I'll walk into the room and I'll be the only person in the room that looks like me. And my one of my first thoughts is, well, I wonder what everybody else is thinking about me, and how do I present myself, and how do I blah blah blah, all that stuff. But it dawned on me as a grown man, like I didn't have the ability to just live or to just be, because I was always trying to be something in response to a view that somebody may or may not have even had of me. And how does that affect not only how I move around the world, but how does that affect my art? Like, how does that affect the things that you decide to make? How does it affect how you make those things that you decide to make? Like that will do that. What you just said was so heavy for me that like it literally right now has me going back in my mind, rethinking how I've shown up in certain rooms and certain sessions and certain like whatever. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's like it's um hard to navigate, and then what it like means to like, for at least for me, it's like what does it mean to like, because like there's like people like you hear like all these like folks that like have like whatever made it means is like people further along in their careers or whatever. They're just like be yourself, just be yourself, and like that'll be like the thing. Be like it's like I like as like a white dude, like 100%, like be yourself, whatever. Like, that
Mhm.
I'm sure that served you well. I'm sure that served you well. But it's like there's it it's different for folks that are like coming from marginalized communities, regardless of like where it is. It's like people have like thoughts and ideas about you, and will place those on you, um, whether
Maybe
they
not
realize
even,
or not.
yeah, and maybe not even maliciously. So when
No,
when when the average white guy is being himself, and that's one thing. And like you said, if I show up and I'm myself, even without malice in your heart, if you don't understand or quite get what that me being myself is, you may not want that. You may not be interested in that. That might not be what we're looking for because again, not maliciously, I just don't understand it. Like I guess it's
yeah,
kind of it's something to it, but I don't get that. And so yeah, what do you do?
yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
like there's like definitely like a bias, whether like that if you clock it or not, or fully understand it or not. It's not like it's not, and that's like that's what's tough, is that it's like it's across the spectrum. We're not just like talking about just like hardcore racists that we're talking about. It's just folks that are like living in, that have experiences in their bodies in the same way that we do, and like and it shapes their experience of the world, and they're
Mhm.
have their privy to like different communities or different experiences, and if and that includes seeing how like seeing people from other communities, regardless of like how woke or like things like how like
Yeah, yeah.
whatever you are. It's just you just have these experiences, like it's the same way that I'm like, as like a straight guy, like I have experienced the world through my body, and that allows me certain like privileges and experiences and things that like, and there are other experiences that I like I'll never fully understand, and that is like because of the body and the way that like that I move through the world. But I just also have to acknowledge it, and so it's not like people aren't bad or good. It's just like it's just experiences that people have, and like acknowledging that I have like privilege in the way that I present. And so it's like, so it's not like I'm not like things like, oh, like all these people are racist or whatever. It's
For
just
sure, for sure.
yeah. My bad. I feel like I got on like a big old like tangent.
No,
No,
All right,
this is
cool.
great. No, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, even from my perspective, having like been working in like writers' rooms, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, this is a big, this is a big topic of conversation. When we were working on Watchmen, you know what I mean? Like, and there's even I remember I told Damon Lindelof one time. I was just like, uh, just like the idea of like even me as a black man, like even I still have privilege among other black men. You know what I'm saying? Like just from the standpoint of, I remember I was walking to work, uh, one day, and like we were in Santa Monica and stuff like that, and I was walking to work, and like I saw, uh, two cops, whatever, like on the street, and they were like, yeah, questioning this other black man on the sidewalk, whatever, and I think he might have been unhoused or something like that. But like I remember I was walking up and I slowed up. You know what I mean? 'Cause I was like, I'm not about to walk on these cops, whatever. I'm just trying to walk to the office, whatever. But like I remember like the cops kind of looked at me, you know, um, and was just like, "Oh, you're good. Come on." You know what I'm saying? Just even as the way that I walk and carry myself or dress, whatever, stuff like that, whatever. And like I don't come off a certain way. You know what I mean? And so there's still privilege that I have, just based on like upbringing, my like class, like stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's still part of it, whatever. And I still have to like acknowledge that and understand that in terms of like, yo, like the way I walk in the world is even amongst black people, it's not the same as other people, the way other people walk in the world. You know what I mean? And just even acknowledging it from that perspective, I think is important. I remember I did when I was preparing for Bruise, I did a 12-hour ride along with some Long Beach cops. Um, and like toward the end of the shift, I remember, and like what they do is like pretty much every stop on the night, like if one cop shows up, all the cops who were on shift that night, they all show up to the same location and stuff like that, right? So at one point during the night, whatever, a house party had there's a fight at a house party. It kind of started filtering into the streets and stuff like that. And so, the cop I was riding along with was always like, "Yo, come on, like you were gonna, you gotta get in the mix. You got to see whatever." I'm like, "I'm good from over here, guy. I'm good." You know what I mean? So, but anyway, I was like out there, like kind of amongst all these people, and all black people, right? Kind of in the mix, whatever. And I'm standing out amongst this crowd, whatever, and like one of the cops, and it was a black cop, one of the cops, like who I saw, earlier in the day, kind of pull me aside, come over here and stand next to the sergeant, whatever, so you can, separate you from all the idiots. You know what I mean? you know, and like, honestly, and that experience, that scene informed the climactic scene of Bruce. You know what I mean?
mm,
It's like, and so like it's crazy to even think like just walking in like your experience, understanding, it may not be racist. It's just people's biases, what they how they view the world, what they think of the world. Informs everything, and I think it informs, the art we make and art we're allowed to make. I mean, like, even from my standpoint, like as a filmmaker, trying to get stuff past the quote unquote gatekeepers in Hollywood, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard because like oh, I don't understand that, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I'm just a black man in the world. Like my whole everyday is not, what it means to be viewed through a white lens. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a human being, like everybody else. Like we're much more similar than you think, actually. You know what I mean? Like I don't. Doesn't matter. Like my lens is not viewed through your lens, right?
mm.
And so like trying to get like have like executives and gatekeepers to understand that part. You know what I mean? Or even like black executives who are like, who mean well, but like, or like, well, we got to get past these other gatekeepers, whatever. So maybe we shouldn't deal with this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like all that exists. You know what I mean?
I,
Um,
I wonder what it even means generationally, though, too, Ryan, because like going back to what my parents would tell me, live above the stereotype, live above the stereotype. They were speaking from their lived experience, like you guys have both said. So when they're telling me that, they have pictures in their minds of who they were, being Black people raised in the South who grew up during segregation and integration and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
they're giving me instructions for a paradigm that I have no knowledge of, because
Hmm.
that's what they knew. And I wonder how that translates today as filmmakers when you think about, the periods of pieces from people of color. So for instance, for me, I immediately think black exploitation films versus some of the sitcoms we had in the 90s versus, the Singleton era versus whoever's up now and whatever
Hmm.
we're doing from that vantage point. And how do those stories show up generationally based on that lived experience, and how does a bruise and a mourning fit into that analysis, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think for me, I, don't know, I guess for me as a writer of filmmaker, I can't like think of it in terms of what is this in relation to all the other things. You know what I'm saying? I think in both the case of Bruise and Mourning, it was like one of those things like this is just what's on my heart right now. Okay. And Ruben, you can kind of speak to this in terms of just like your work as a cinematographer. Like when you're trying to, frame up a shot, like when you're thinking of just your craft. You know what I'm saying? Like how you think of the work.
I guess I could talk about my experience in like my history with like image making, and especially in my relationship to like my family, my father, my grandfather. And I think mourning is, I'm so excited for it because like talking about this isn't like a huge like spectacle movie. This isn't like a space like opera type of thing. This is a very it's a very grounded, um, character driven story. There are like moments of magical realism, but it's not for the sake of spectacle. It's very character based, and I think like my what makes me so excited about it is that the cinematography isn't so like my approach. And what we've talked about is like it's not going to be so in your face. It's going to be, um, and it's not like it's tough. It's like it's I want I don't want it to be disruptive. I don't want it to be um, distracting. I'm really interested in these characters. I'm really interested in supporting these characters, and it's sort of like it's not unlike seeing the home movies that my uncle put together.
Hmm.
It's there aren't there it's not like those home movies aren't crazy plot driven. You know what I mean? There isn't like a thing that they're trying to achieve at the end. It's for the sake of just being seen, of just celebrating who these people are just by being on screen. And there is like a magic to it by seeing it on screen.
Mhm.
And and for me, like that's what I want is like I'm trying to like take that experience that I had of seeing as like a little kid, seeing my family on screen and like putting this like fictionalized version of this other family, but of treating them as like real people.
Mhm.
And that's not like I'm trying to do it in a way where like it's not manipulative. I'm not trying to manipulate the audience into a feeling a thing. It's just presenting these people as real people. I do a lot of documentary as well,
Mhm.
and that's I think that lends itself into this project incredibly well. It's like I'm in documentary, especially verite stuff, is that I'm still shooting the subtext. I'm still trying to understand who these people are and what they're after and what the obstacles that they're coming up against, the hurdles that they're trying to overcome, and still shooting the subtext, but not doing it in a way that like I'm obtrusive in their life. And even though like mourning is a fictional, like it'll be like it's a fictional narrative, it's still the same thing. I don't want to be obtrusive. I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to manipulate the audience. These stories are compelling as they are, and
Mhm.
I just want to present it to the audience, but like with like a little support of like all of the tools in my tool bag of cinematography.
Mhm.
And it's just being a little bit, I don't know, like being further away doesn't feel like the right, and the objectivity isn't correct, like isn't fully like the right, because I'm still making decisions, and we're not
Mhm.
just like putting on a play. There's still like camera decisions, but it's not going to be so in your face and distracting.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm taking all of these things of like my history of like my path of like image making and trying to put it into morning, which is I'm so excited for. I've done a lot of like, not saying that there's like, it's not, I'm not giving a value judgment on what's what's better on like terms of like the spectrum of cinematography, but this is something that I haven't done in a while, and
Mhm.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to do.
So Rue, I want to talk a little bit like too, because I also want to get into like your path here, in terms of like once you like entered the industry like full time, you know what I'm saying, and like how we got there, and then like and also like within the context of that is also just like you know just where we're going, like how like this, because we've talked a lot on this podcast and amongst ourselves, whatever, about like the reason kind of like why we decided to do morning when we decided to do it was just the way the industry is right now in a state of flux. There's a lot of like hand wringing and news about how like the Los Angeles film industry is kind of is seems to be collapsing. There's a lot less production happening. It's all the companies are saying, studios are saying it's too expensive to pay people, so now they're moving stuff to overseas and to different locations, stuff like that. um I wanted to kind of know like your thoughts in terms of like also in the context of like your trajectory in the industry, but also like where you think we're going in terms of like do you feel like a shift happening as far as the artist trying to take a little bit back, a little bit of control, and do you see that kind of prompting a new kind of indie boom? Do you feel excited about it, or do you feel like pessimistic about it? Do you feel optimistic about, like, what I mean, like that was like three questions in one.
No, it's I mean it's like, I feel you, man. It's everything's turbulent, man, and I think to like jump onto like a topic that I was talking about earlier was like coming out of USC and trying to figure out where I fit in this industry, and
Mhm.
that's like a like and trying to figure that out for myself and the things that I want. And especially now, like coming out of pandemic, and there's like strikes and like it's like everything's turned upside down.
Mhm.
Is I don't know where I fit in the industry, and it doesn't, and I think I've thought about that a lot, and it's pretty much like trying to be okay with that, and instead of like trying to like merge into a freeway that's like really hard to merge into. It's like, well, cool. What if my path isn't on that? And it's like trying to figure out like what makes me feel good, where I feel fulfilled, um, and that I can be okay being me. And it's like and it's also like a path of like self acceptance and being okay with myself. And like, and what does that mean with my, and like, and how does that relate to me and my relation to the industry? That is like, I don't know like if that any of that makes sense and or answers
That makes
any of your
perfect
questions.
sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, like I think all of us as artists are like are feeling some semblance of that. You know what I mean? Especially now. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard some very like high level people in the industry, like writers, talk about the same thing. You're like even you, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Um, and so no, like, can you talk? Like, that's really interesting. You talking a little bit more about that?
Yeah, 100%. It's trying to it's I think in all of the projects that I do is leaning more into um a form of like self-discovery, right?
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
it's instead of doing a project for cool, how is this gonna serve my career? How is this like in making decisions based on career? And for better or for worse, this is probably why like I don't know if like I don't know if this is whatever the right path is, but this is a path that I'm on right now, is like trying to make or making decisions based on how it makes me feel, and making like, and like it's, I think morning is a like is a fantastic, for all the reasons that I said, is like it feels like it's a continuation of even from where I started off the jump. And it's like I can't go into morning and be like cool and like using it as like a stepping stone to like, of course, like it'd be amazing for everybody, but operating from how it hits me personally and my what I bring as like as a human into this project, like that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in finding like learning about these characters, learning about your experience, Corlando's experience, everyone's experience, and what they bring to it, to just make me like uh, I don't like a whatever, a better person, or like a more just like just learning about other people and about myself, um, just for the sake of that, and creating
Mm-hmm.
a thing maybe people will hopefully people like will resonate with.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happens like beyond that in terms of like business or whatever happens, that would be that'd be that'd be fucking great, right? Of course. But if I can't operate solely from that, um, because then like you can just get your heart broken too many times, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's then and it doesn't like you also miss the opportunity to experience people,
Mm-hmm.
all of the and like experience like true collaboration. And I've done that like plenty of times before, and that's like a major like source of regret, or of, and if it's like worth spending energy on regret, it's like another conversation. But it's like a thing that like I wish that I like had a different perspective on, because now I get to like hang out with you guys and experience you guys fully and have like this conversation. It's like this is all part of it, and this is amazing, and I'm really excited to like to continue it with like all of our collaborators that we have.
But this speaks to like so just for like the audience, you know, like we so so Ruben and I met at USC. Um, if I'm remember this correctly, we were introduced by a mutual friend, Richard Heredia Arriaga, also from Sacramento.
Yeah, yeah.
Sacramento legend right there.
Same neighborhood too, man. We went to the same middle school.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy. He was first AD on Bruise. You know, I was, you know, I produced his film Happy Birthday. You know what I mean? Like, so like, yeah, he introduced us, and like, you know, for me, you know, it's probably like immediately I was like, you know, like Ruben 10 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Like as soon as I met you, I was like, this is a solid dude. You know what I'm saying? And then like
Appreciate that.
we kind of collaborated on a few projects. You worked in the camera department on a few things that I did, you know, including Bruise. You were the first AC on Bruise. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I damn, I don't remember, man.
Yeah. So
I
like
think it like floated around, like doing a bunch of different stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so yeah, then like we graduated and like like I did with like a lot of I kind of just lost touch. You know what I'm saying? And then we were kind of putting this thing with Maureen together. Like, I kept thinking like, what about Ruben? And like, and Jamari Perry, our producer, was like, yeah, like, oh, Ruben would be great. Like, and she
Hmm.
kind of reached out and like and set us up, and like, I don't think we had talked in like 10 years maybe.
it's been a minute. Yeah,
Yeah, and we met, had coffee, and we're just like just sitting there for like 3 hours, just talking about movies, just talking about this project, and like just like it was like no time had passed at all, right? And it's like, and I think too what was really uh great is like, I think we like kind of commiserated on like kind of being in that same space of just like feeling a little bit unfulfilled, and trying to get back to like just the work and what turns on about the work, right?
mm,
And I think for me too, like, I've worked on some big TV shows and like writers and stuff like that. but like in my I'm a writer, but also like in my heart of hearts, I'm a filmmaker. Um, and I wanted to get back to directing. Like I had stuff in development, and like I had been development hell for years and years on several projects. And I was just like, I'm tired of like kind of like the runaround, like the gatekeeping stuff like that. I just want to get back to doing what I want to do, and also not worrying about um, again like the career implications, and like getting back to like just the process of doing it. 'Cause that's what I actually loved. It was the process of filmmaking because this shit is hard, right? It's really really hard. Try like it's a cliche, but it's real. It's like every project is a miracle. Trying to put the money together is crazy. Like we're trying to put the money together for this thing. It's crazy trying to do it. You know what I mean? Like we're relaunching a fundraiser in February. Like it's all this stuff is going on before you can even get to like the actual act of filmmaking, whatever, right? That's why like your collaborators, like what I mean, it's like that's family right there because you're in the trenches. You know what I mean, trying to get this thing done, especially like when you're going like a fully indie route. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And so like I think we just commiserate about it. And like I think just like what was like so great about just our conversation we met is like we were just sitting there just talking about like the art. You know what I mean? Like how's this look? How you put it together? Like director, cinematographer, like, and I was like, yo, I missed this, right? This is exactly like why I became a filmmaker. Like this part of it, like it's not like the accolades or like seeing my name in Variety or Deadline, whatever. It's like about making the thing. Like this thing that was not there before and now it is, right? And imagining what it could be and stuff like that, and solving problems and you know chasing ideas and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Getting excited about ideas, like that's the great part of it. For me, what I always loved about like the process of filmmaking and like doing it with my people, because like I'm in the writer, like you're kind of like alone in the room and you're like banging your head against the keyboard. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like when you can actually sit down and like just talk about possibilities, right? Like that's the fun part about this art form. That's what trying to work it with AI will never get you. Whatever. That's why what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like it's about the very tangible, like getting the clay on your hands. You feel me? Like it's not about pushing a button, just like the computer doing it for you, whatever. It's more than that. And so no, I think like that's why like I'm really excited about like this collaboration and just like what we could do, because I mean like we talk about when you read it and like you just got it, like you got it, where I come from, like you were bringing ideas to it that I hadn't even thought about, you know what I mean? And like it's like I was so excited about the movie we were gonna make. After we sat down and talked about it for 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? you
Yeah,
know and so I
yeah.
mean and that's the thing, like you know this is the part that I love, right? And so I think like a lot of us just in like the broader community of artists, of filmmakers, I think we're all kind of coming to this point where it's like, especially with the studios, with streaming, you know what I mean, like trying, like I think it's important for us at this time to get back to like the basics, and kind of take more control of our own destinies. And like obviously we're artists, so we need patrons, you know what I'm saying? And so like we need money to do this thing, and you gotta get to the money, and that's always the hard part. But like I'm really excited to see just what this next, the last like 5 to 8 years have been a little like very difficult, for the artistic community, for the filmmaking community. I mean, yeah, people say, "Oh, there's so much money that's flowing around." Cool, for some people, it was really great. For the broader health of the industry and for the future of cinema and filmmaking, not so great, right? But I'm excited for like the next 10 years and seeing what that looks like, because I think we have these cycles. I keep saying we have these cycles, right? And I think we're on the cusp of like a new artistic boom in cinema, just and not enhanced by AI technology, whatever. I think just like the very tangible, like I'm just talking about like the stories that artists are just going to try to tell, and try to do it on their own, and kind of figure it out from the ground up. I think from the ground up is where the industry is going to come from the next 10 years instead of top down. What
I
do you
agree.
think?
I agree with that, and I think going back to what something that Ruben said, there's a crop of filmmakers who have more of a heart centered approach to the form than a profit first approach. And I'm sitting here listening to Ruben, and I'm like, yeah, imagine that. Imagine like self discovery through art or self examination through art. Wow, imagine. And I'd say that sarcastically because hasn't that always been what art has been about since time immemorial? But here recently, it's all about tent poles and popcorn, especially trying to make up what everybody lost during 2020 to 2022 or whatever it was. So I agree with you, Ryan, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of that the new breed come out and what can come from not trying to reboot Magnum PI or not trying to reboot whatever it is and actually like
Well, here's the thing about that. We are going to see a bunch of like Magnum PI reboots on TV, which is why I think movies are going to make a comeback. You know what I mean? I think we're going to see, more of a dichotomy now, between like what TV is, and what cinema is. You
I
know?
hope so because right now I feel like the lines are getting more blurred than ever. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, especially when you look at the distribution models.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look at Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Brad Pitt and George Clooney have to fight for a theatrical release, um, and get a marginal one, like
Mm-hmm.
what was it, a week or two before it was on streaming, like that, that makes me wonder, like, okay, well, what are we going to do differently? How are we going to be able to make things happen differently? And when you see Meryl Streep reprising her role for the second season of Only Murders in the Building or whatever it is, which is I think it's a great show. I think her performance, as always, is stellar. But Meryl Streep in her second season as not even the lead, but like a recurring guest star on a TV show. Like for me, the lines are still stupid blurred. And when we think about like what I know cinema to be or film to be, and what TV is today, so yeah, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope we do see like a clear demarcation. And
But again, what you're saying is, that's why I think there's going to be a a shift. Like I think the ground is kind of shifting beneath the feet of all artists. And I think they're going to, one thing artists always do is we kind of, the door closes, we open a window. You know what I'm saying? We figure out a way. You know what I'm saying? And so, um, I think with like just seeing the stories about like how distribution models are with the streaming model, whatever, people who actually love cinema, maybe they're gonna start thinking of different ways to do things. You know what I'm saying? Like
mhm.
maybe streaming, going straight to a streamer isn't the best move. You know what I'm saying? For our project and our and I'm speaking generally. You know what I mean? But like people are gonna start thinking like, what is there a better way somewhere? And people are gonna get very creative that way. But yeah, just getting back, like I just think like yeah, I'm very excited in terms of like artistically because I think like this new this new landscape where uh artists are saying like let's take control for ourselves, create space for new voices or like writers and
Mhm.
directors, and for like just what Ruben was talking about, and just in terms of just like the art of cinema and cinematography. You know what I'm saying? Whereas like you know just knowing Ruben's work and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you know I know like most Netflix movies like look the exact same. They have a model. They kind of put limits on lenses. They put limits on
Camera types, camera
camera type. Like
bodies,
yeah,
yeah.
and so like a lot of stuff looks flat. A lot of stuff looks uniform, whatever. And it's like okay, that it stifles the art. I mean, I was just watching the trailer for The Brutalist yesterday, the new movie starring Adrian Brody, and I was just like,
Right.
this is this is cinema, man. Like, just there's shots in it. I'm just like, yes, like more of that. You know what I mean? And so like we should be putting constraints on us. So like I just think like this is why like I'm super excited about the collaboration, which is like between like me and Ruben, and then just the rest of our teams are like, what are we going to put together to make with no constraints, right? Aside from whatever financial constraints there are, right? Right, but like
Right.
even that creates like interesting opportunities. Where like, okay, it enhances your creativity. It's like, okay, we can't afford that, so what can we do? And interesting things happen and based on that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you know, but yeah, just to like kind of like get towards wrapping up, Ruben, I wanted to ask you. This is far like this is like a two-part question. As far as like being a cinematographer, right?
Mhm.
What about it? What about it do you love? Like, and what like shots do you remember that really actually it's a three-part question. Like what about it do you what about cinematography you love, whatever, and then like what like and like how you bringing that to your process, and then what what shots in movies in particular um like really really excited you, you know what I mean, as far as movies that you've seen and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and then four-part question, and wrapping up into like what is your favorite movie and why.
Dope. Cool. I think I love um as a cinematographer, my like what gets me like the most excited is when the content and the form like marry each other like really well, right? Sometimes like and I think that's like such a hard thing to do is to make sure that what you're shooting and then how you're shooting it like go hand in hand and one doesn't like especially if the cinematography doesn't like overshadow what the content that you're shooting. So when it for me whenever it's on set and I do a like in the middle of the shot and everything like is seemingly like working together and then I'm supporting whatever is happening and it just fits well, I get like so excited. It's like I get that's like that is the thing I'm chasing like everywhere I go is like how do I match this form with the content? And that is like that's that feeling I'm chasing every day I go on set.
Mhm.
Um, because it's like because that means like because whenever what that means is like I've that in order to get there means that it's like like I've understood the story, I've understood the characters, I was able like to collaborate efficiently and effectively with like the other collaborators. I've able to like communicate. We were able to like put things in place in order for that shot to happen or for those shots to happen. And it everyone like came together. It's like you said, it's a miracle every time a project comes together. So
Mhm.
for it to only happen, but then also happen in like where everyone's like moving in the same direction and everyone's like working out so well. And even like not even like out of carelessness or lack of ability, it's like the film gods like just come down and like cool, everything's happening at this moment. The weather, the sun's like the weather is correct, the like gust of wind happened exactly where it should have happened. It's like or whatever these intangibles are, and everything like comes together. Oh, that's like there's sign me up for that, and that's what I'm chasing every time.
Mhm.
um that's like that's what gets me the most excited as a cinematographer. um Favorite shot. How about I'll start like one of my like favorite movies is uh is Amadeus. That's
Mhm.
like that's like that movie I like it's amazing. It's so good. That's like I think that's like where it like pairs like image and music together.
Mhm.
It's like it's like and it's like there's like a huge anti-hero in that and I and there's like a huge idea of um like maybe an imposter syndrome, but it's like more of like this guy is like going after a thing and like could never like break through because
I
this
love
other
it.
guy to me.
Yeah, I love it just because like I relate to Salieri so much.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
Everett Abraham was incredible in that movie.
Yeah, man. That dude,
Yo,
Jim.
that dude,
yeah.
so good, so good. And so it's like every time, so it's like there's that moment where he's like reading like his Mozart's wife brings like his like first drafts of like of his work like secretly, and he's looking at him like, and he goes like through each one. You can hear the music as he's like looking at the music, at the sheet music, and he's like goes through, and it's like, and the music just changes as he like goes from page to page, and he's like, and there's like a shot of him where he's like he's so impressed by it, and it's like being like so impressed by it, but then also it's heartbreaking because he'll know he'll never be that good, and he just like drops the sheets of music. I was like, that's like, oh fuck, like every time I watch a movie, I'm Salieri, right? Every time I
Yeah.
watch like a banger movie, I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna be that good. Oh, I'm never gonna be, but like I can appreciate it. I have enough ability to appreciate how good it is, but it's like to get there is
It's
like
the
another.
manifestation of imposter syndrome in cinema form. Like it's just like it's
Yeah,
so perfect. Because like it was crazy about that movie too. Is just like Salieri's successful. He's successful. He's more
he's mad
successful than Mozart.
successful. Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But he like
yeah,
he knows like no, actually, actually Mozart's the one, and
yeah,
I'm
He's
not.
that.
It's so
Yeah.
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, man.
Movie's genius.
Yeah. Full circle. Hopefully that would bring it tie a
Yeah,
nice little bow on
yeah,
it.
no, that was great. Yeah, okay. So like, just to wrap up, we're running out of time. So we'll let you go. Like, just on morning. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Uh, when you read, when I reached out to you, and I sent you the script, and you read it. And you talked about it just a little bit, whatever. But like, what about it? Like, really, kind of like, turned you on and made you want to come on to the project.
The first thing that struck me was the structure of it. Is that there isn't a. It's not like a heavy plot driven story, but it's a character driven story, and that's something I didn't like. We hadn't talked in like 10 years, so I wasn't quite sure exactly like what to expect.
Hmm.
So when I read it, and it took me a little bit. It's like I'm like I think like I was like, oh, let me see like where this story is going. It's like, oh, these are just like people living their life, and I was like, oh, this is like, and it caught me off guard. I was like, oh, I'm not putting like, oh, I need to start this over again. Like I need to like get my mind right, and like, and I is am I there we go, and and it's like I need to like and like give this attention this deserves. And I like read it. It's like all this. It's just people in like of like uh in extreme circumstances, but they're just people. And we get to like hop into their lives through like a series of days or a day. And that's what really got me is like, oh, cool. This isn't like a big spectacle. We're like, these are character studies. And that's like, that's, that, that really impressed me. That's what got me the most excited. I can tell it's like a deeply personal, uh, character driven story, and I don't run into a lot of those stories. I haven't like a lot of the stuff is like plot driven. And so to read this story, to read this script, and to see that it was just like we get to pop into these people's lives in a very important time in their life, and just to experience it with them. I was like, that was so exciting for me, especially as a cinematographer, is that it's going to be able to um, like work a muscle that I don't get a chance to work with, especially in narrative, but I get to bring in a lot of my documentary experience into. So that's the first thing is like reading this. I was like, cool. Let me see what this plot is. Whenever I was reading it at first, And then whenever I realized, oh, this is like a character driven story, I was like, oh, let me like restart this and like get it right and and get my mindset in the correct spot. And then like rereading it's like, oh, this is like it's so it's so rich. It's so rich that like it's a very efficient story, but there's so much going on. There's a lot of subtext going on. It's a lot of human experiences going on. That one is like I'm so interested to find out like how I connect with this and my personal experiences that I can bring into it. But then I'm really interested in learning Ryan's experience. I'm learning, like, I want to hear everyone's experiences and what they're bringing into this. And just so have it as an engine to one, learn about other people, learn about myself, and then how we can all create this story together. And because it is so like human and character based, it's like there's so much that we can dive into. It's so much um, how personal it is that how people interpret it for themselves and how they can bring it to the story. That that got me excited right off the bat. And so whenever so then whenever we met with Ryan, like he was saying, like it's of course we went to like a 3 hour conversation. We just had this coffee, and it was a great jumping off point. And I think and it's like now like into this conversation, it's like this story, this short is a vehicle for honestly like human connection, connecting with like with all of us, and that's like it's beautiful, and I'm super excited to keep it going. And we haven't even shot it yet, man. So it's like we're there's so much more to go, and
Yeah,
that's I'm so excited for that.
for sure. All right, so that's a good place. That's a good place to end. Ruben, thank you so much for joining us on the 22 Booker podcast. Um, to the audience, as you heard of this conversation, we're all super excited about this film and putting it together. If you want to be a part of it, you want to help in any way, just reach out. You know what I'm saying? You can find us. Reach out. Let us know if you want to help in any kind of way, and we'll have a conversation. We can tell you how you can help. So anyway, thank you, Ruben, for joining us.
Yeah,
And
man. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
So glad to be able to get the band back together again and work together on this project. And I also, Ryan, wanted to remind people that um, while we definitely want your help contributing financially as we gear up for our campaign. There's also other ways you can get involved. You can definitely lend your treasure, but you can also lend your time and your talent to helping get this project to the masses. So, like Ryan said, click whatever links we have. DM us, let us know that you want to be involved, because we want you to be involved, because we think this is a universal story that every single person on the face of this earth will be able to relate to. And yeah, we love your help getting the story made.
all right, thank you guys.
All right, have a good one.